Determined to change the course of his solitude, he purposely approached her as she stirred some logs in the furnace. He put his arm around her waist. They were closer than ever, their faces almost touching. When she turned to pick up the iron and shift the coals, he was startled, letting out a muffled cry. "Mr. Iulián, let me help you," he said, holding her hand tightly. The kitchen was lit only by the crackling fire, its shadows growing on the wall. Everyone had already retired, and Sumarokov, overcoming his barriers and encouraged by his aunt's advice, kissed her for the first time. Trembling, Katinka allowed herself to be kissed. It was what she had wanted most, and now, thanks to old Aunt Olga's encouragement, her wish was coming true. Embraced, they exchanged caresses and whispers, thinking everyone was asleep. Their aunt, however, watched them secretly, hoping for their happiness. She didn't let them notice and tiptoed to bed. In bed, she thanked her matchmaker saint for her nephew and the kind maiden. The lovers couldn't talk loudly. The space was too small. They wanted to speak freely and limited themselves to exchanging affection, the best way to ease all those years of waiting. It was as if they were meeting that day, and the barriers separating them were completely broken. They indulged in increasingly bold affection. Such was a need to express a pent-up feeling, one that fear and shyness had held back for so many years. "One, how long have I waited for this moment?" said the girl. "I thought you weren't interested in me. I suffered a lot, judging you by my side. Only out of duty. Let's get married, Matuchka, let's get married. I don't want to waste any more time. Will you accept this poor, lonely old man? You are neither one nor the other. You are very much loved by me. But you are so foolish, my love, so foolish, that during these years you have not realized how much I love you. Forgive my foolishness. It was the fear of losing you that made me back away. I always thought you only felt compassion for me and my situation. How silly you are, Iulián. Can't you see that I left everything to be with you? We've already wasted too much time apart. I don't want to wait any longer. We'll tell your family and invite them to our wedding." When the two went to bed, the night was far gone. Iulián was so happy he could barely sleep. Tomorrow they would talk to Alex, go to Katienka's house, and set the wedding date. He seemed like a happy boy. His children would all agree. Loved the girl. The next day, Olga was elated, for things were going as she had planned. Sumarokov's ostentatious courtship had left poor Katienka embarrassed. She tried to hide her feelings from the boys and became self-conscious when Iulián came home and approached her. The children gradually grew accustomed to this long-awaited relationship. They loved the girl as if she were their own mother. There was no objection from them when they learned of their father's decision. Aunt Olga would stay and look after the house, while the couple went to town to announce the engagement to Katienka's family. Their uncle's dream was to take them to their farm. They were already old and tired. They had no children, and they would leave everything to Iulián. 30 Iago. With Alex in charge of the farm, the mujiks had nothing to complain about. They received decent wages, and their children attended school. Only Sergio persisted in his old ways, secretly causing suffering. He and his henchmen threatened the peace of the Norobod estate. Sergei could no longer bear to hide his stolen lands and decided to come clean, leaving Norobod's lands and taking over his own as the rightful owner, continuing his criminal empire there. The mujiks continued to work on lands that belonged to them by law, unbeknownst to them. Gradually, the separation became visible, with Sergio reinforcing the boundary fences, bringing the best workers there, and making them increasingly fertile and rich in crops. When he declared the separation, he would have vast plantations, cattle, and a good number of employees. This was Sergei's sordid and well-thought-out plan, as he had around 10 armed men with him, ready to fight at any moment, if necessary. Alex suspected nothing, despite noticing that some of his crops weren't producing as well as they should. One day, he decided to go and check what was happening himself. The idealistic young man had stopped attending Kostia's meetings, absorbed in managing and ensuring production of his property, implementing his ideas and making the lives of the peasants less miserable. It was natural that the peasants loved him. Some knew his ideas and clearly perceived that certain orders Sergei gave them did not come from their true master. The peasants, sensing something amiss, began to bring their observations to Alex, based on events unknown to the young man, busy with other tasks. They felt it their duty to inform him. Why were the lands producing on the one hand, yet increasingly neglected on the other? The vastness of the land made it difficult to monitor its entire production, and Alex was not very experienced, despite his goodwill. Sumerokov worked outside the fields, but for some time he had detected Sergio's error and bad faith and waited for the right moment to act, always listening to the complaints of the mistreated peasants. Comrade Semyon, I haven't heard from Kostya and his meetings. Do you know anything? Alex asked, because his father's business was now completely separating him from his friends. I have them just as much as you, since I'm so involved with the school. By the way, my friend, I need someone else to help me, because the number of children has increased significantly. Perhaps, Sonia, I can help you until I hire a new teacher. The idea of having Sonia around at school didn't appeal to him. He preferred Sumerokov's children. Why don't you invite one of Sumerokov's children? They're intelligent and creative. Which one? Iulián, the oldest? I know, not Iulián. He's the one who has the most difficulty, maybe Pavel? Nicolau is very young. Semyon put his hand under his chin and turned excited to Alex. I have an idea. Why not hire the two? Nicolau will stay with me, watching me, and Pavel will take charge of the beginners group. That's how everything will be resolved. Alex smiled at the timely solution, eager to help Sumerokov and his sons. Ask them both to come to my office. I'll hire them today. As for Kosla, I need someone to go to the city and find out how the cooperatives are doing, if more farmers have joined forces. You should read Semlin. Who else can we trust? All right, Comrade Yago. I'm sorry, I forgot. Yago was a name adopted by Alex to hide his true identity, J. Alex. I will call the boys so that you can communicate your decision to them, and then I will instruct Pavel so that the classes are not interrupted. Shut up, Semlin. Never mention that name here. The walls have ears. Alex whispered, looking around. Forget me. Alex, you're right. I'm sorry, we must be careful. Semlin left for school. Moments later, Sumerokov entered the office. Mr. Alex, Katlenka and I have decided to get married, and I ask your permission to go to the city to speak with your family and set the date for our wedding. How clever, smiled Alex Gogo. Sumerokov, thank you, sir. We'll only stay 2 days, that's enough. Will you go to the city? I think your going will be very beneficial for me. I need you to look for someone, a friend, and bring me news. Sumerokov thought he was some aristocrat and waited for his boss to give him the address. He had never imagined that Alex could also be a friend of Comrade Kosla. Iulián Sumerokov was leaving when Alex remembered. Sumerokov, I have a good proposal to make to your boys. First, I want you to agree. Coming from you, Mr. Alex, we can hope for the best. I need tutors to replace Professor Semlin and assist him. I've been thinking about your sons, Nicolau and Pavel. Instead of going to the fields or taking on heavy work, could be better utilized. They're intelligent and hardworking. They'll make excellent teachers. Immensely happy with the luck that fate had in store for his boys, Sumerokov was grateful for the kindness of that gentleman and for the good fortune they had had in ending up on that farm, so cursed by everyone, but for him and his family, more blessed every day. Mr. Alex, I don't know how to thank you. They were now chatting in the office, while Carlin completed her daily cleaning. Unaware that the young woman was listening, they continued nonchalantly. Since your father hired me for the job, I promised myself I would do everything possible to provide for housing, my own support, and that of my family. However, I confess, your late father's reputation was terrible, and I came prepared for the worst, but here I have found only peace, and my children have never known privileges. I can only thank you. I've come to realize that your old father, despite being a nervous man, wasn't as bad as people say. The same cannot be said of Sergel, considered by many to be the master of the land. Sumerokov, unaware of it, naively let his tongue wander in the entreat of Karl, who pretended to be absorbed in her work. Do you know anything else about Sergel Sumerokov that I don't know? Iulián fell silent. There were many comments, and he wasn't sure if it was his place to speak. He checked to see if the office doors were closed and met the servant's green eyes. He made a meaningful gesture to Alex, who, realizing the girl's presence, quickly changed the subject. Well, Sumarokov, go to the city to arrange your wedding, and before you leave, I'll have time to write the message to friend I want you visit on behalf of Yago, my friend. Yago. Yes, Yago. I don't want you to mention my name, just that of this friend. Okay, I'll do whatever you ask. 31 The Betrothed. Iulián Nikolai Sumarokov and his girlfriend Katienka were going to the village of N. Autumn was approaching, and the dry dead leaves covered the landscape in yellow, orange, and reddish hues, creating a beautiful contrast with the leaden ground and pale blue sky. The lovers were gazing at the trees when Iulián broke the silence and asked his girlfriend, "How is Dmitri's scientific research going?" Since the wizard Dmitri neighbor had complete freedom to interview his daughter. He's interviewed her several times, but I don't think he's gotten much. Whenever he brings up the subject, she avoids it, making the research difficult. I've been leaving them alone, but he's discouraged. What methods does he use? Katienka, who always attended the magician's sessions, paying close attention, answered him. They sit facing each other. He questions them, sometimes using objects like writing paper, stones. Will Mayra answer you? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. He makes her sleep. I think he hypnotizes her. I would prefer that none of this were happening, but I cannot refuse Mrs. Norobod and Mr. Alex's request. They seem very interested in unraveling the enigma of the ghost that is troubling them so much. Did you notice, Iulián, that after the wizard's arrival he gave a truce? That's right, Katienka. The spirit seems to have calmed down. I think he really liked tormenting his father, and since he's dead, it's not funny anymore. What do you think? There are things that can't be explained. See, how do you explain the fact that he was looking for our Mayra? This means that it wasn't just the father that the ghost came to find. Iulián argued, convinced of his daughter's connection with the spirit of her blood mother. Why would he have chosen Mayra, such a good girl? Iulián was burning with a desire to reveal to his fiancée the reason the ghost had sought out Mayra. However, he had sworn never to reveal this fact to anyone, and although Katienka was so special, no, he wouldn't tell. He ran his hand over his old, thick coat, then slid it into the pocket where he kept the note, the only piece of evidence he had, and which he hadn't had the heart to destroy. It seemed the story wasn't over yet. That important secret represented the truth about the life of the girl he considered a daughter. I really don't know, he replied with a somewhat mischievous air. These are things of fate that cannot be explained. Mrs. Norobod visits us often, and every day she grows more attached to Mayra. Would you believe, Iulián, that she sometimes calls her Sasha? I don't think the old woman is quite right. I wonder if perhaps the suffering has affected her brain. She seems fine to me, compared to Norobod. The old man, yes, had a serious problem. Didn't you ever witness the last nervous breakdowns he suffered? I saw his attacks a few times, and I was horrified and moved with pity. You never want to see, Katienka, how terrible an epileptic fit is. The conversation between the two was lively, and every now and then they stopped to let the horses rest. They were almost leaving the property when they were stopped by a grim-looking man coming in the opposite direction. Is this the Norobod farm? Sumarokov examined the man, and, judging by his boots and coat, he looked like he had been walking for days. He was a Muscovite wanderer who didn't belong in those parts. His horse was tired. "It's right here, friend," he answered in his booming voice. "Thanks for the information. How far will it take me to reach my destination?" "A few more hours and you'll be there." "Where are you from and who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for someone named Vladimir." "Do you know him?" "No one by that name in these parts." "Is he some peasant who works in the fields?" "No, he is not a peasant of the land." "I know almost everyone around here, but Vladimir? I've heard that name somewhere. If not here, where was it, Katienka?" "I don't know. I've never heard. Wouldn't it be at the meetings?" "Yes, that's it." Iulián couldn't say anything without first knowing who he was talking to, and he asked, now facing the stranger, "By any chance, is this Vladimir a cooperative member?" "This is the one," exclaimed the stranger, satisfied. "However, friend, I think you're looking in the wrong place. There are no cooperative members around here with that name." "Really? I was told he was working at the Norobod farm. If that's where he is, I should find him here." "Waste of time. You're free to go ahead, But I assure you, I know these people and I haven't seen anyone with that name. Have they deceived you? The man frowned, thoughtful. What's your name and where are you from, comrade? Sumarokov asked, seeing that he wasn't giving up his search. Karosky, I'm coming from the city, and I have an important message for Vladimir. Do you know him? Tell me, what is he like? I've seen him before once, but I haven't forgotten his face, even at night in the light of the fire. He's still young, with a well-groomed beard and mustache, thin and tall. He speaks well, with black hair and eyes, and when he speaks he has a habit of twirling his mustache. Who could that guy be? He was delaying his trip, but he felt sorry for the man. He had walked so far and found nothing. Iulián explained, Okay, from this description, it's difficult. If you want, go ahead. I'd like to help you. Maybe he's there. I don't know. Kadienka, a great observer, called Iulián aside. Couldn't the professor be that person? He has a habit of twirling his mustache when he talks. You're very observant. I'd never noticed before. Turning to Karosky, he said, I know someone who fits your description, but his name is Semyon, a professor, not a cooperative member, nor a peasant. He's a learned man. Semyon. Yes, that's his name. Maybe it's Vladimir Semyon. I'll look for him. I urgently need to find him. Thank you. Don't be like that. Goodbye. Goodbye. The man galloped off, leaving a cloud of gray dust in the air. What a hurry! Exclaimed Kadienka. / I think the name of Semyon prompted him to leave quickly. Strange. Come on, Iulián, otherwise we'll be too late. We're already too late. Things were getting difficult in that time of hunger and misery. Everyone wanted to take advantage of the situation, and no one knew who to trust. On one side, there were the subjugated Mujuks, and on the other hand, the increasingly demanding masters. Operating in secret, the cooperative members were guided by a group of idealists, and on the other hand, other groups organized to combat cooperative ideas, which could hinder their petty interests of illicit enrichment at the expense of slave labor. This climate, conducive to brawls in taverns, the destruction of crops, the burning of wooden houses, the emptying of warehouses, and the theft of small properties, left the people fearful and restless. No one trusted anyone. Everyone lived in terror of the famine that ravaged the country, increasing the death toll and the horrendous misery of their lives. In the cities, the situation was even worse. The peasants who took refuge there, fleeing the slave regime, could not find work, lived on the streets like scum, and turned to robbery. The elderly and children suffered most from the profound economic and social transition of decadent Mother Russia. On every corner, there were armed riots, murmurs, and distrust. This was the unpleasant and sad atmosphere the city offered Iulián and Kadienka, whose naive happiness had not expected to encounter such misfortune. The village where Kadienka's family lived was nearby. They would go there first, and then deliver Mr. Alex's package. Katienka and Iulián were welcomed with great joy by Katienka's sister, Luisa, and their mother. In the house lived their elderly Uncle Bartholomew and his 2 brothers, who were working on one of the nearby farms. The mother had improved, and the news of the wedding brought her great joy, for she was confident that one day her Katienka would fulfill her dream. It had been worth waiting so many years. Now her daughter was happy. Everyone treated Iulián as if he were already a member of the family. The poor but cozy home had enough space for guests. Happily, they set the wedding date, talked until late, and when they went to bed, everyone was tired but overjoyed with the news. The next day, the newlyweds would pass through the city and then return to the farm. 32 Vladimir Anton Borowski is Kostya. Before they actually arrived at the address Alex had given them, Iulián stopped at a store to buy some gifts for his children and a coat for his fiancée. The address would be last, and from there, finally, they would resume. Katlenka helped Iulián choose the gifts, but as they left the store, happy and carefree, they were disappointed. They were robbed by 2 men, so quickly that frightened, they didn't immediately understand what was happening to them. Iulián left his bride and ran after the robbers, but the clever men were running fast, and he had to leave them before something worse happened. He wanted to return home immediately. At least it was safer there. He felt sorry for those who lived in the city or had farms nearby. Horrified by the city atmosphere, he said to his bride, "Let's get out of here quickly." He took her by the arm, got into the cart, and sighed. "It's a good thing they didn't steal our horses and cart. Let's go, Iulián, it could be worse." Iulián Sumarokov whipped the horses. The bride reminded him, "Aren't you going to deliver Mr. Alex's package?" "That's right. I was so terrified of these thieves. I'd forgotten. Where exactly is the address?" Sumarokov asked, flustered because he was illiterate. Katienka took the envelope from his hands and read it. "We have to ask someone. I don't know where to start. There have been a lot of changes around here. Who is this Yago, who is signed on the envelope Iulián? I don't know. Mr. Alex asked me not to mention his name under any circumstances. We must remain silent about the origin of the package, limiting ourselves to simply delivering it to the carrier. If we can't find him, I must take it back." "Okay, I'll keep it confidential." Asking here and there, it took them a while, but they ended up finding the address by the name written, Vladimir Anton Borowski. A friendly young man came to greet them. When they learned who they were, Vladimir Anton himself immediately came to meet the couple. Iulián was even more surprised when he recognized Anton, the former cooperative leader. He had seen him a few times at important meetings, but he went by Kostya, the cooperative leader. "Comrade Kostya?" he asked, happy to be reunited. "Yes, I do," he replied cheerfully. "Are you from Yago?" he asked, ushering them in and treating them with great politeness, as the street wind and noise prevented them from conversing. Sumarokov and his fiancée entered. The cooperative was warm, and they were happy to have a break from the unpleasant street weather. "Kostya, are you Vladimir Anton?" "Yes. We use the nom de guerre in meetings, comrade." Sumarokov finished Iulián, helping his memory. "Sumarokov, it's good that not everyone knows who we really are. What estate do you work at?" "At the Norobod farm." The man's smile faded. He frowned and asked, and how are things going at the Norobod estate? Have they adopted the new system yet?" "Yes, it's going smoothly. Norobod's son has had some minor problems that haven't even affected the progress of the work," explained Iulián. "Since his father's death, Norobod, a lot has changed for the better. Norobod and his fame were well known among cooperative members. I heard the unfortunate man died in a very depressing way, and a spark of anger flashed across the young warrior's face against the former landowner and his absurd feudal system. He was our most feared adversary. It was fortunate he died naturally. I don't know how they didn't assassinate him. He was evil and inflicted many cruelties on hundreds of serfs.